Chatgbt said this about how the white system keeps Africa in control.
If you wanted to stop Africa from becoming a superpower, you wouldn't have to invent a new strategy. The blueprint has already been written, tested, and perfected over centuries. You'd start by making sure Africa never unites. The easiest way to do that is by keeping people divided along ethnic, tribal, and religious lines. If they ever start working together, remind them of past grievances. Stoke old wounds. Fund separatist movements. Keep border disputes unresolved. Make sure every time they take one step forward, they take 2 steps back because they're too busy fighting each other. You'd install leaders who serve foreign interests, not their people. Find the most corrupt, the most easily manipulated, the ones who crave wealth and status more than progress. Offer them power in exchange for loyalty. If a leader rises who actually cares about Africa, get rid of them. Assassinate them if necessary. But if that's too messy, just destabilize their government and back a coup. If they talk about nationalizing resources, make an example out of them. If they try to unite Africa, take them out before the idea spreads. You'd keep Africa economically weak by making sure it never industrializes. Let them export raw materials, but never process them themselves. Control the mines, the oil fields, the rare earth minerals. Keep them selling cheap and buying expensive. If a country tries to break free and build its own industries, sabotage it. Place sanctions, destabilize its currency, fund local opposition, crash its economy. If that doesn't work, orchestrate a civil war. People can't build when they're too busy trying to survive. You'd make sure their education system produces workers, not innovators. Teach them history that glorifies their oppressors. Make them think their cultures are primitive. Their ancestors were savages. Their future depends on foreign approval. Train them to memorize, not to think critically. Keep their best and brightest looking overseas for opportunities. Make them dream of escaping Africa rather than fixing it. Offer scholarships that take their top minds to the West and never encourage them to return. Let the continent keep training doctors and engineers only for them to go enrich other nations. You'd control their narratives. Own their media, control their stories, dictate their image to the world. Make them believe they are corrupt, hopeless, eternally in crisis. Flood their screens with poverty porn and war zones. Show them charity ads that make them believe they are helpless without foreign aid. Downplay their successes. Twist their victories into isolated incidents. If an African country develops a groundbreaking innovation, credit a foreign investor. If an African leader implements a successful policy, frame it as an anomaly rather than proof of competence. You'd make sure they remain dependent. Drown them in debt. Offer loans with impossible conditions. Force them to privatize everything so foreign corporations own their water, their electricity, their land. When they struggle, give them just enough aid to keep them alive, but never enough to make them self-sufficient. Use charities to create a culture of reliance rather than resilience. Make them think foreign intervention is necessary, that they can't solve their own problems, that they always need help from the outside. You'd suppress their military strength. Keep their armies weak, their defense industries non-existent. Sell them weapons to fight each other, but never let them develop high-tech military technology. If a country tries to build a strong defense system, accuse them of being a threat to stability. Make sure they always need foreign peacekeepers, foreign military bases, foreign advisors controlling their security. Keep them vulnerable to invasion, coups, and foreign interference. The formula is simple. Divide, corrupt, exploit, miseducate, control. Keep them fighting each other. Keep them looking outside for solutions. Keep them poor, dependent, insecure. Make sure every attempt to break free is met with resistance so strong that the next generation thinks twice before trying again. This isn't a theory. It's history. The real question isn't how to stop Africa from becoming a superpower. It's how Africa can break the cycle despite every effort to keep it down.
Wagwan family, welcome back, and I thank you so much for joining my YouTube commentary. Thank you so much for joining my YouTube channel. Okay, I love you and I honor you for turning in today. Now, what I'm going to talk today is not just a commentary. It's a truth. It's a truth that must be told, because I'm going to talk about how the white system keeps Africa down, or black people to be precise, And again, after listening to that video of ChatGPT, even AI knows. And that's why I said, right now, information cannot be hidden because technology has changed everything. All the lies they kept, they buried. It is coming up. Okay? It's coming up. Now, understand this. The chains of slavery might have been removed physically, but the chains of control remain. They are not made on iron anymore. You can't see them on, but they are made on debt. They are made on false education. They are made on Western aid, foreign policy, religion, and even culture. And if we don't expose this, if as young people we don't know about this, how system works, then Africa will continue to be controlled, manipulated, and kept from the light. Okay? And right now we are seeing we are rising, but they have their own ways of continue keeping them down. Now, let me talk about this. I have something I call illusion of freedom. Africa is technically free. We all know that, okay? We have independent nations, we have flags, national anthems that were written by them, we have presidents. But ask yourself one thing. Is Africa truly independent? Is Africa truly free, okay? Or is just an illusion of freedom? The truth is this. Africa is not free because colonization never ended. It simply changed form. They gave us independence ceremonies, but behind the scenes, the white system stayed in charge, okay? Through institutions like IMF, through institutions like World Bank, the United Nations, Africa. So the so-called independence, it is carefully managed. It's an independence, but it's someone who is watching over that independence.
IMF and World Bank are economic enslavers. What they are designed to do is to ensure that we are in a perpetual state of debt. You can never get out of IMF and Bretton Woods institutions generally because they want to ensure that they control your economy, and when they control your economy, they control your politics. That as long as we are dependent on IMF and World Bank, our economies are simply going to be shadow economies of the American economy.
The same people who have the audacity to tell us that we are poor countries, they are taking trillions out of Africa every year. And what is the African doing? Like an obedient, programmed black man, we just give in. We know the facts, but we just do nothing about it. The most dangerous African of today is an African who is colonized, educated or not. What is our education doing to us? What have we done to undo the colonial education? I hear right here in Ghana, perfect example. There's not a single Kwame Nkrumah book that is required reading in the Ghanaian educational system. Whose problem is that? Most African countries, our educational system is still the colonial educational system. So what do you expect from the leaders that we have today if their education remains colonized? It is the educated who are refusing to challenge the status quo and speak on our behalf, educated or not.
They didn't want Africa's population to grow. This is an interesting one because they feared what Africa might become. In 1974, the USA government wrote a classified report called the NSSM 200, also known as the Kissinger Report. It laid out a strategy for controlling population, growing in developing nations. But here's what they didn't say out loud. It wasn't about global health or poverty. It was about resources, oil, minerals, access, control. The report specifically named 13 countries they feared would grow too fast. One stood out, Nigeria, the only African country on the list. Why? Because a powerful, growing African population could challenge USA interests. They feared young, rising populations could lead to uprisings, nationalism, or governments that might say, no more cheap deals, no more stolen resources. The Kissinger report warned that the USA needed to control these populations, not directly, but by funding local family planning initiatives. The language was very careful, voluntary, known coercive, but the goal, keep Africa's population in check, to keep Western access to African wealth in place. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's declassified USA foreign policy. And if you've ever wondered why African nations rich in oil and gold still struggle with poverty, maybe the real issue wasn't overpopulation. Maybe it was over-manipulation. This is the Africa they plan to silence. But I'm here to show you.
They do not need armies anymore to control Africa. They control Africa through contract, control Africa through loans, through policies, and they make African governments sign agreements that bring them to their knees, bind them for generations. And when African leaders try to break free, they're either unalived, overthrown in coups, or isolated by sanctions. This is what the white system does. It controls without chains, slavery without the whip, colonization without armies. And it works because many Africans still believe we are free. If we start seeing this freedom with a third eye, we will know what is eating what. They come and give us debts, and those debts are not accidental. It is designed. The loans comes with conditions. They tell you that what to cut. They tell the leaders what to cut, what to privatize, what to sell, and what to surrender. Think about this. Every year, Africa pays billions of dollars just to service debt interest. Not even debt itself, just the interest, And that money could have built schools. That money could have built hospitals, industries, and jobs. But instead, it goes right back to the white systems. It goes right back to the Western banks. And because it is unjust, the system moves against them. It goes back to Western governments and Western cooperation, okay? Debt in modern days, it is slavery. The same way our ancestors worked for free on plantations, Africa now works for free through debt payment. That is the reality. They are saying they are helping. I call it aid illusion. That's another way how white system controls Africa. They tell us aid is charity. They tell us it is generosity, But aid is not free. They have their own agenda. Aid is control. When Western nations send aid, they attach conditions. They say, you must change your laws. You must pass these laws. You must open your mistakes or your markets. You must allow our companies to access your resources. You must adapt our social agendas, okay? It may look like gift, but inside it hides control. It hides a timing bomb. Now, Africa is the richest continent in the world in terms of natural resources. Gold, diamond, oil, gas, cobalt, lithium, uranium. But yet, we are the poorest in terms of development. Why? This is because aid and loans are used as weapons to keep us dependent. The white system makes Africa forget its power. The white system makes Africa forget its wealth. And believe me, we cannot survive without help from outside. We cannot. And that is the greatest psychological trick they played on us. That if we must go ahead, we must have loans. Psychological trick. Right now, the white system does not keep armies directly in Africa. They are using this, the AFRICOM, African Union, SADC, East Africa Community. Those are their armies. And that's why Ibrahim Traoré said no to the Western Union. Because what are their work? Is it to protect African people? No. The work of these institutions like AFRICOM, World Health Organization, is to protect their own interests. If the work of this organization was to protect people, Congo could be peaceful up to now. We could have developments because they could be checked. But because they are here to protect their interests, they are keeping every day we are having wars and chaos in some African countries so that they can benefit. And when people rise up against puppets government, these foreign militaries or step in, they crash for resistance. These foreign organizations that are here, sometimes they call it peacekeeping, but it's a peace for the system, not peace for the people. Okay? One of the most powerful tools of control is not the gun, it's not loan. Okay, not even the military base. It is the classroom. The white system designed African education to serve them, not as black people or not as Africans. Look at what our children are taught. Look, what I was taught is so different from what I'm going through history and learning. I'm learning some things different. I'm learning right now about Kemet, about the origin of civilization. I'm learning about Timbuktu. These were never taught to us back then. Okay, it wasn't. They taught us about Christopher Columbus discovering, Charles Darwin doing what? They never thought that we had black inventors and black innovators. Okay? You know, they made us memorize names like Columbus and Vasco da Gama, but not Mansa Musa. That's the reality. And this is not accidental. It's what we call mental colonization, because if you erase people's history, you erase their power. If you teach Africans to see Europe as the center of civilization, then Africa will always kneel down to Europe. Education is a factory of mental slaves. It produces Africans who can work in Western designed systems, but not African who can liberate Africa. And this is why you find our brightest graduates dreaming of working in Europe. Today I received a call from my guardian, and I'm looking for a passport. And he told me, if you get that passport, if you go, just go. Just visit here once or twice. If you go, just go. And I'm like, going where? Even my parents think Europe is better than Africa. So personally, it is telling me, if you are going, just go. Don't come back. And that is the poor mentality that we need to remove from our youths, African youths, from our African people. That mentality alone kills Africa. That mentality alone makes Africa continue to be poor. You're like, I cannot build here. Let me go. You know, I cannot do this. I cannot do this here in Africa. That mentality has kept Africans believe that we are nothing. Okay? Now, the image we see every day shapes what you see as yourself. I'm talking this because of the media and culture. They are controlling, or the images they are showing, it shapes something. The white systems knows this well, that if you show this to them, that's what they believe. And that's why global media is owned and controlled by them. So when they show Africa, they show poverty. When they show Africa, they show war. When they show Africa, they show diseases. Okay? It's so rarely do they show the wealth, African innovation, African strength. Okay? And this is not random. It is propaganda. So if the world sees Africa as weak, then Africa can be exploited without resistance. If Africans themselves see Africa as weak, then Africans will not rise. Look at Hollywood. Look at Western music industry. They promote certain images of black people. Violence, crime, hypersexuality, foolishness. Okay? They export these images into Africa, and young Africans begin to imitate them, thinking that is black culture. But meanwhile, they hide the true African culture of greatness. They hide the true African culture of spirituality, of unity, of strength. And this is what I call cultural colonization. And it works so well that Africans now look down on their own language. We look down on our own traditions, on our own foods, while glorifying European lifestyles. Now, for example, here is chicken in chicken, and here is your original chicken. Do you know a typical African kid or youth will go for this chicken thinking it's very genuine than this original chicken that your mother has made? It's just an example. So the white system right now does not need whip to control, okay? They make you whip your own self. And that's exactly what cultural control does. They are exploiting resources, you know, and that's their core of control. We are the richest continent in the earth as Africa. Without African resources, the West cannot survive. But what's happening? Africa exports raw resources and import finished goods more expensive. And that means that we sell cheaply and we buy expensive. For example, Africa produces over 70% of the world cocoa, yet Africans don't own the chocolate industry. Western companies buy cocoa in cheap, process it into chocolate, and sell it expensive to us. One of the deadliest tools white system use to control its sanctions, economic warfare. Okay? On the surface, sanctions could just look like punishment for government that break international rules. But in reality, sanctions are economic weapons used to crush nations that refuse to obey Western orders. Look at Zimbabwe. When Robert Mugabe took land from white settlers and gave it back to black Zimbabweans, they put sanctions to Zimbabwe. Just overnight, Zimbabwe economy was strangled. People suffered not because they lacked land and resources, but because the white system cut them off from the global economy. Libya is another example. Muammar Gaddafi wanted Africa to unite under one currency, backed by gold. He wanted Africa to be free from the dollar and the euro, but he was bombed, assassinated, and his country destroyed up to now. His country is destroyed up to now. So I would say sanctions are modern day warfare. They don't use bullets. They use banks, not tanks. They are using SWIFT system. They block nations from trading, from accessing loans, and from buying equipment, all to break their resistance. Those are the ways. We have a lot of ways they are using, but we need to watch out as Africans. We need to get more information. We need to read history. We need to teach our children about the importance of loving your own self. It's called self-love, okay? That's the only way we can succeed. The chains are breaking, the lights are falling, and Africa is rising. And when Africa rises, every African across the globe rises with it. So we need to rise as Africans, okay? Stay strong. Until next episode, peace out.